Shadley Gray. I am with Agency Management Institute. For those of you who do not know, Agency AMI is dedicated to helping elevate small to mid-size marketing companies. This webinar series is something we started in February of this year in order to create a more hands-on and interactive experience with some of the industry leaders that can help us figure out best practices and next steps. Thrilled today to have Susan Bayer and Brian Gerstner join us. Brian is with White Label. Susan is with Audience Audit. And this year they joined together to launch Agency Core, which I will have them talk about in just a second. A little bit of housekeeping. You are welcome to pop any questions that come up as we go along into the chat. We will also hold about 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. But if any questions do come up as we go along, please feel free to drop a note in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat as Susan and Brian walk you through this fantastic information today. So with that, I will turn things over to them. And as a start, why don't we talk a little bit about Agency Core, what it is, how it came to be, and its goal.
Awesome. Thank you, Shadley. Brian, nice to see you. Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Baier, my colleague, Brian Gerstner, different companies, as you may have heard. And we got together this year to form Agency Core, which is a research nonprofit for small to mid-size agencies. So Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what we're doing and why?
Yeah, well, we noticed like in the space, there really was not a lot of great research just looking inside of agencies, and particularly agencies were frequently excluded. Knowing that too, and even with my own passion for this came from the fact of growing up through the agency space and often just feeling like I'm inside of a bubble, not knowing what other people are doing, how people are being successful, and just recognizing that we're on the edge of change. If without getting information, being able to make decisions quickly, I always felt a bit hampered. And really, as Susan says, and being relentlessly helpful, we just wanted to walk the talk and be able to really show up and demonstrate our commitment to the industry.
For sure. So Brian and I both own agencies. Both of our organizations are agencies, and we also sell to agencies. I'm a market research agency, and Brian's organization, White Label, provides talented staffing and services to agencies on a white label basis. But Agency Core is not a vendor to agencies. What we're doing is creating free research every year, ungated. Go ahead and get it. Everybody can use it. Everybody can talk about it. And as Brian pointed out, it's really hard to get agency leaders into research. If you're buying respondents through panels or whatever, they're excluded from taking a lot of surveys. So we worked with, I think, 16 partners on this particular study, Brian, who serve agencies to help us distribute invitations. And the focus is really to balance some of the other research that's out there for agencies. So Shadley, you know that AMI and my agency have been working together for 15 years now. And for the last 12 years, we've put out the Agency Core study, which is a free study for agency leaders, but it surveys agency clients. A lot of them AMI, but outside of that community too. So that comes out every year, which is a nice view. We wanted to have the other view, which is inside agencies, surveying leaders and finding out what's going on with them. I did this study first a few years ago in 2022. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what's different this time. But this is an ongoing initiative, so I hope you guys find it helpful. We'll have resources for you at the end, but this is all your data to do with your teams, for your own marketing efforts, strategy to talk about with your peers, for sure. So let's take a look. So this particular study is a winter study. We did it in 2022 in November and December. We did it at the same time frame this year, 2025. It's an online survey. And all of the respondents are anonymous. So they don't have to give us any information about their contact or anything like that to participate. We had almost 800 respondents participate in the study. Oh, there's my dog barking at a boat. And the margin of error on that, Maggie, stop, is really high. So margin of error is 3.4 points at 95% confidence, which is really strong. So as you guys look through this data today, you're going to see something that is statistically reliable. It's representative of what is happening in small to mid-size agencies because we have so many respondents. So it's data you can rely on, which is important to Brian and I.
Mhm.
So we have some insights. Brian, do you want to start with the first one here?
Sure. The
Okay.
key insight is in 2023, when the attitudinal segments were defined, coming into 2025, we actually saw very little shift in the attitudinal segments, although there was some variation. So, to a degree, this tells us that these specific attitudes are really deeply embedded in the industry. These are just different types of, shall I say, um, mindsets or attitudes that are just prevalent consistently.
Yeah.
Although we've done it from 2023 to 2025, next year we'll tell if we see shifts, but these attitudinal segments are not predefined. These come from the research directly. And Susan, you can talk more about that.
Yeah, so it's important, I think, as a researcher to understand not just what people look like on paper, but how they think about things.
Mhm.
So our work focuses on how different audiences in a group have different perspectives about things. So we put a whole bunch of stuff in front of them that they have to rate in the survey, and then that data gives us the segments. We don't decide ahead of time how many buckets there are. We don't decide what defines them. But what we learn is the different groups that exist in terms of how they think about this. And in this case, what they're thinking about is their agency.
Mhm.
So we see this landscape. We're going to go through each of them. It doesn't mean that an individual agency can't have changed from one segment to another. It just means that we continue to see these 5 segments in very similar proportions year over year. So this is really, there's always agencies that are doing well. There's always agencies that are struggling and struggling with different things. So that's the landscape we're going to take you through first, because it's going to help you see and understand the rest of the data.
And
So
Susan, one more
yeah.
note. If I as we were talking about the demographics coming into this,
Mhm.
there was pretty much no statistical relevance whether it come to age, sex, location. This was pretty widespread.
Agency size, revenue, there are a few things we'll talk about, but overall, yeah, this is not about how big your agency is or how much money it makes. It's really about how the leadership thinks about their agency, how it's doing, and how they prioritize things that are important to them in their agency. So when you look at this group of 5, the first thing I want you to realize is that 2 of these groups, the ones on the ends, are doing well.
Mhm.
Okay, they are tackling challenges better than other folks. They have fewer issues than other folks, and they themselves feel really good overall relative to other agencies about how things are going. So let's talk about the 2 first that are doing well, Brian.
Mhm.
So the first is thought leaders, and this is a name we gave them, but it's based on the attitudes they have around how important agency marketing is and having a defined niche in which you can be an expert. So agency marketing is something that they do consistently and they prioritize consistently. And it's not just marketing, it's thought leadership. So they are out there as experts providing helpful advice and feedback to their audiences. And Brian, one of the things we found about these folks is that they don't just say they're experts, other people say they're experts. So they have a reputation in their niche as being an agency that really knows what's going on, whether that's around a particular tactic like SEO or AI, or whether it's in a particular industry or working with business leaders who have particular types of challenges in their organizations.
Mhm.
Um, And then the other thing is they feel very good about their positioning. It's solid. They talk about it in their marketing. They talk about their niche in their marketing. Like they sort of have that whole strategy thing together and they are pushing it out into the world. And that is one of the things that they say is really helping them. One thing that's interesting this year, Brian, is that more of these folks say they have a reputation as experts among other people than they did 2 years ago. So I know Shadley Drew has been talking, beating the drum for a really, really long time about niche and expertise and reputation. And it seems like folks are listening because we do see more of these folks actually saying they're not only experts, but they're recognized as experts. This group also, Brian, has the fewest challenges of any of the 5 segments we're looking for. So is that causality? We don't know, but is it correlation? It absolutely is. These folks are struggling with a lot less.
One of the things I thought was interesting too is thought leaders offered the fewest services when we asked people like the number of services they were offering. They had a very much more focused service offering.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also the most likely to be fully remote.
Yeah,
Um,
isn't that interesting?
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it does say something to access to talent. Um, absolutely is being able
yeah.
to work with people.
For sure. Okay, so that's segment 1 that's doing really good. The thought leaders, that's 19% of our community. 21% are the loyalty builders, and they are also doing really well. Let's look at what's going on with them. So these folks have decided to really double down on why clients leave agencies in general, their agency specifically, and fix that problem. So they have developed very strategic, very formalized programs to retain clients and grow profitability from existing clients year over year. So they're not only keeping their clients, they're actually building the revenue and profitability that they're getting from those clients year over year. So what's unique about them that separates them from others? First of all, they say they have a deep understanding of what is putting clients at risk of defection. Why does this issue come up for clients about whether they should leave an agency? So they're really diving into what's happening. They are consistently demonstrating a return on investment to clients. And one of the things I think is interesting in this group is that they're not only reporting results of things, they're consistently reporting the work that is being done on behalf of a client. So the client is seeing the outcome, but they're also seeing the effort, which I think is interesting. These folks do say they have a reputation for excellence in their niche. They have also got processes going on to increase client spending year over year. So they're not just satisfied keeping clients from leaving, they're actually focused on building a client relationship year over year from a financial standpoint. One of the things that this group says is they are very adept at adapting to change, which I think is an interesting characteristic in a world that is changing so dramatically for agencies now. Don't you think?
No, absolutely. And for me, this is the most fascinating group in that as we even talk about the adaptation to change, this was probably one of the most optimistic groups. And as you see, as we get forward in here, the general optimism within the agency space is one of the big insights that we have. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing that I really love about loyalty builders is when they talk about retention.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty builders were the most likely to say that they had a really good relationship with their in-house marketing department. And in
Yeah.
addition to that, the cool thing was they were the most likely to say that the outcomes of their work were better
Mm.
because
When
of
they're working
the
with an
relationship.
in-house
So it's
team.
just showing that once again we're in a relationship industry, and
Mm-hmm.
by that immense investment into those relationships is proving successful. And I think that also really ties into that them having an understanding of what puts clients at risk. It's because they're talking to them. There's a much better communication channel. And then once again, to reiterate what you said, they were the most successful at growing revenue
Mm-hmm.
from existing clients.
They're very intentional about what they're trying to accomplish. And this group is the only one that significantly grew versus 2 years ago. So more good news in terms of
Mhm.
people really focusing in on client retention and relationship and development.
And,
Um,
and as we talked about agency core and the data, do know we have the full data visualizations which will be coming out. So you'll be
mhm.
able to learn more and dig more into each one of these and help figure out what makes them tick.
Yep. So that's the two segments that are really doing better than everybody else. And I guess, we can chat at the end, we'll answer questions, but if you have thoughts about these segments or they ring true to you or to your agency, just, let us know or put a comment in or whatever if you want us to talk about that. Okay, here's the bad news. Three of these groups, and that is 40% almost of our population, is really having a tough time for different reasons. So let's dig into those. Brian, you want to talk about
Yeah.
staffing strugglers?
So staffing strugglers are the most likely to say that increases in salary demands are really going to limit the type of people and the talent that they're going to have. And that's definitely affecting, as we see here, they can't get qualified employees that they need. But,
Mhm.
on that point, also they're the segment that offers the most services. So they're offering
Mhm.
a much wider variety of services. And they're also saying that they're not able to deal with the change as well. They're
Yeah.
discussing it as a much more disruptor and not sure that they're going to have as much of a bright future. They have probably some of the on the lower end of the optimism spectrum. And
Yeah.
to that point of being able to, even hire, they fear that their clients are going to leave to find better opportunities or
Mhm.
work with agencies that are, in my interpretation, handling the change better or have
Yeah.
more optimistic and less anxiety within it, I would believe.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, one of the things I see with these folks is that their profitability is causing, or lack of it, is causing them issues because
mhm,
they are not able to manage the size or talent of staff that they want within the constraints that they've got financially. They're having trouble finding people who are qualified, but they say salary levels are their biggest challenges and that they are losing employees to agencies who are paying more. And this is not the frenzy after COVID when people had just crazy salaries going on to the same degree. Like, there's something going on here that is really hurting them in terms of just their ability to staff
mhm.
what they want to do and their client load and the range of services they're providing. Yep.
And this is even coming into now, like over the past this year and last year, there have been significant layoffs throughout the industry. So a lot of the pressures that were on hiring before are not as extreme as they used to be, but yet the same problem is persisting, even though the staffing um,
Environment
well, the
has,
environment is really kind of loosened up a bit.
yeah, yeah. So they're having a tough time. Okay. Change seekers. Boy, Brian, these are the ones that I just feel like are just woe is me. They're having every problem they can have. They are seeing market shifts that are affecting them, new technologies, client demands are changing. And overall, these folks honestly aren't sure that they're going to keep their agency alive. They think big changes are going to be needed for the agency. They're having trouble getting clients, they're having trouble keeping clients. One of the things that's unique about this group is that more than anyone else, they do a lot of tactical work as a proportion of what they're doing versus strategic work. Um, and they say that clients don't want to prioritize strategy or pay for strategy, which we know when we look at the overall community of agencies, we know is not true because there are agencies out there getting top dollar for strategic work. But for these folks, they really feel relegated to tactical stuff. They're not successful at selling strategic work. Maybe they're not very good at doing strategic work, but because they are relying on so much tactical stuff, it's harder to keep
Mhm.
clients than it is if they're strategic partnerships.
Yeah.
Um, and you're going to see in this study, pipeline is a huge issue for a lot of agencies. So we're not trying to say 40% has it hunky dory and everybody else is struggling. That's certainly not the case. Uh, but this group in particular is really having a hard time getting new clients and retaining them.
In addition to that, the change seekers are saying most overwhelmingly that their clients don't understand how much they're putting into the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Really feeling that there's a mismatch in perception and delivery, and that they're just that is causing a great amount of struggle, loss in profit on projects, um, just across the board, probably some of the lowest optimism.
Yeah, reporting's a really interesting thing. Other than the loyalty builders, the rest of us are not doing a great job at reporting consistently, either outcome or work being done, or feel like we're doing a very good job at it. So these folks are certainly struggling with that. Okay, cobbler's kids. I'm going to take this one because this is my agency. um, these agencies know they need to be doing their own marketing, and they're not doing it. So it's sort of that, we're always last in line when it comes to the expertise that we offer our clients. We rarely take advantage of it ourselves in a lot of cases. These folks say they fail to prioritize their agency marketing efforts like those of a client, that those efforts are haphazard. Interestingly, when these guys get clients, they have very high levels of loyalty. They're holding on to them. So the work is not a problem here. The problem is getting prospects who are ready to convert and are right fit prospects for them, because they just don't have anything out in the marketplace that talks about them and their expertise in more than a very sort of generic or haphazard way. It's hard to
No,
stay on the wagon sometimes with content and marketing, isn't it, Brian?
no, I think, and we share like I think one of the high insights that these people are doing, cobbler's kids are still doing really well. They have really
Mm-hmm.
good reputations, a lot of like referral work coming their way through those reputations. It's just they're kind of hidden gems.
Yeah. And when
Yeah,
stuff dries up, they don't have a pipeline
yeah.
that knows about them. Yeah, it's a problem. Okay. So let's talk a little about what you and I see, Brian, as agency leaders and researchers in this data. So look what the agencies are doing that are doing well. Number one, a defined niche that
Mhm.
actually gets highlighted in their marketing. So it's not a secret they're keeping. It's not hesitant. They go out there and say, this is who our ideal clients are. They are
This,
consistent. Go ahead, Brian.
I'll say this is in my mind from as an agency owner coming forward is critical because as AI comes out, that just very specific knowledge, that industry knowledge of being able to focus down and be great at something, I think
Mm-hmm.
is becoming way more critical than ever before, particularly because things are noisy, the tools are getting easier to use, and a lot of end clients are bringing a lot of that execution work, some of those things that they know that they can get done at a cheaper level in-house, so that they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for very focused agencies who have authority in that area to really come in and, from my personal theory, um, teach their in-house marketing departments what they don't know and what they can't teach them.
Mm-hmm.
That authority position, I think, has been a really huge driver, and I personally feel that it's going to continue to really drive success.
Yeah, expertise is a really important thing to agency clients. We see that in the agency edge every year. Um, and so the folks that are doing well are showing that expertise off. The other thing they're doing is sharing thought leadership content of some kind. So they're not just marketing, they're actually out there helping and providing their expertise and advice and perspective in sort of a helpful way. So people get to know and trust them, which we know how important trust is these days. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but this is one of the ways these folks are building trust, not just with clients, but with prospects as well, because they've got content out there while prospects are looking around for agencies. They have a reputation in their niche. So they're not just saying they're great or they're experts. Other people are saying that. And that is consistent with those segments doing well. And they are working proactively to understand and build loyalty with clients. Drew talks about how we should be getting at least, is it 20% or something like that of new revenue every year from existing clients? Maybe it's even higher than that. Um, and this group is bought into that and is really holding on to people and working to develop those relationships. Do you want to talk about the struggling issues?
Yeah. Of course, as Susan was talking, being able to build a pipeline through prioritizing the marketing has become even a much bigger issue now, as we see not just the number of people, but qualified prospects within your pipeline is the number one issue that we saw across this study, across the board. And particularly by not prioritizing marketing, people are just not building that cadence of new client revenue when there's churn, or when they do lose clients, it's becoming much more of a critical event than ever before. That reputation, the lack of reputation comes from that. And once again, I completely believe that if you have an agency that has a focus, you are able to attract talent that is more focused and has an understands the mission and the clarity within the agency. So you are able to attract much higher talent. My own experience in kind of the design and dev, I absolutely find that, people want to work with other people that they can learn from and definitely grow. So that reputation, I believe, is definitely a qualification for attracting talent. And talent is, I think, the name of the game, particularly because strategy has become has been growing across all the lines of what people are delivering. Um,
Yep.
in addition to that is issues, not earning strategic work with clients. So in that, as I mentioned earlier, as a lot of execution and the tools are increasing and automation from AI, without being able to offer some sort of solution-based or strategic-based offerings, or being able to capitalize that or have clients that appreciate that, it's really starting to commoditize a lot of the deliveries that are coming through. So that ability to, earn the strategic work by having that authority through the marketing and the reputation, once again, all of these issues kind of cascade off of one another.
Hmm.
And in
Hmm.
addition, being able to command sufficient fees, like if you are a generalist or you're competing against other people or not able to really create that differentiation, um, then again, it's hard to ask for more. It's hard to ask
Yeah.
for more because you are much more replaceable. If people don't understand your position and why you're unique, you can more easily be swapped out. And I think that
Yeah.
pressure.
I think sometimes we forget the impact of a reputation for something on expertise on our own staff and our own opportunities to get the staff that we need and be able to pay them reasonably. Okay, so that's these segments. Let's talk about some more insights. We've got a bunch more to show you. So, ouch, this one really was tough for me to see. Versus 2 years ago, when I did the study in 2022, optimism among agencies has absolutely cratered. Now, this was back in November, December. In 2020, that should be 2023. Yep, 74% of our agencies were strongly optimistic. This year, 47%, a huge drop. And that covers all of these segments, types, and sizes. Now, there was a lot of sort of what's going to happen going on in November and December before the new administration took office. I don't know that it'd be much better today. I still hear a lot of agencies really sort of discouraged and struggling and trying to figure out how to move forward.
Yep. So as we know, this was before all the talks with tariffs. This was before the administration change. So a lot of the instability,
Yeah.
politically, is not represented here at all. To
Yeah.
the point of it maybe having being left.
Lee, this was from the first study was in 2023 and the second study in 2025.
So
So the
so
November, December this year is what we're seeing at the 47%. November, December, sorry, 2024, 2022 and 2024. Nice job. Thanks,
um,
Lee. I'm doing great.
on this though, I don't want to leave this slide without denoting that there is absolutely a flip side and silver lining to this. Although we look inside of agencies and we're seeing this loss of optimism because of, potentially change in how we deliver and how we need to show up, AMI, as we know with the Agency Edge study, has a much more optimistic look about the opportunities that are coming forward.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of those today, which I think will give you guys hope. So as agencies ourselves, these are the kinds of questions that we are asking, and maybe all of you on the call can think about. How can we as leaders find optimism based on real opportunities? We know there are agencies out there being successful. When you're struggling, it can feel like everybody is struggling. And I talked to a lot of agencies at the Build a Better Agency Summit this year, Brian, that were
Mhm.
doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think we need to share what's working for each other and try to help lift each other up. Because if all you're seeing is your agency struggling and that's all anybody's talking about, nobody's hearing about the good stories. And for me, how can agency providers offer advice and support that's helpful? We talked to partners in this study who are all agency providers and talked about things like leadership, right? If you have strong leadership skills and you have clients that are agencies that don't have that, partners can step up and I think offer a lot of support in a time that's difficult. And I hope we see that.
So we debuted this research at the Build a Better Agency conference this year.
Hmm.
And it, as you say, how can success owners share success factors? I think that is so critical in the sense,
Hmm.
even as part of Drew's keynote, in that being around other people who are also navigating the change, particularly if there's a lack of optimism, to be able to be around those people gives you the confidence of seeing how people are doing it. And also that shared social support to be able to take the risks because if we do have to show up in a significantly different way, if delivery models are going to change significantly in how agencies are structured, that's a lot of change and no one wants to do that alone.
For sure. Okay, number three, agencies see big change coming. Look at, we asked them sort of, how do things look to you for the next couple of years for agencies? And 73% of our respondents, almost 800 in total respondents in the survey, said agencies are going to have to step up to prove value to clients. That is a big number, statistically more than we see any of these other responses, but also a lot of people saying we're going to serve a different role in marketing than we do now as agencies. A lot believing agencies will always be necessary, but also big changes are coming. And 38% say they are worried about the unknown. The good news is only 7% said it's time to get out of the agency business. So, but there's a lot of concerns here. And I think one of the things I like about this study is while we saw this agencies are going to have to step up to prove value in such great numbers, most of them are. 87% of the agencies say they are already actively changing processes and operations to adapt to the marketplace and what's changing in the world.
And
Um,
Susan,
so,
one note on that, to interrupt, on that
yeah.
previous slide, the one statistic that like looks really dramatic to me is that agencies will always be necessary and less than half of the people only saying yes.
Yeah, and you would
When-
you would you would
yeah,
expect that number to be higher because
mhm.
we're agencies. The
Yep.
respondents are agencies.
But
Yeah.
one key way I look at this is maybe agencies as we know them today, maybe just
Hmm.
how we understand them today may not be necessary, but I'm fully optimistic in the nature of agency model still being, flourishing and
Yep. A different role, maybe moving ahead. So, implications of this. How can we as agencies navigate this change? The ones that I think that are coming at us, and also the ones that agencies are saying we need to make, the stepping up that they need to do. How can we navigate that with our internal teams, our clients, their internal teams, new business efforts and prospects? That's a lot to deal with. So I think change and navigating change is going to be should be a big priority for agencies this
but
year to make that successful.
no, absolutely. Even with the discussion of like all those monumental moments of change coming and just
Hmm.
the number that this is now the climate.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. And once again, if you're doing great out there with change, please share it. Please talk in the Build a Better Agency has a great Facebook group. If you go to conferences, if you're on webinars, like help people understand how to get the resources and expertise they need to make the change that they have to make in their agency. Positive, practical examples, I think, are going to really help people feel a better sense of optimism. And once again, I'm turning to agency providers like you and I, Brian. How can we offer support for the kind of change that agencies say that they need to go through?
because we are in an industry that, I mean, now it's maybe changing faster but it's
Hmm.
always been an agency that an area that's pivoted. And I think there's a certain type of person that's attracted to this type of environment.
Yeah. And so often we're at the forefront of what's happening. So that change is important for everybody else too. So, okay. Insight number 4, Brian.
Right? This was surprising.
It was surprising. Pipeline is the problem, not AI. So I will tell you, I came into this and we knew we wanted to talk about AI in this study and understand, because I was hearing a lot of water cooler talk about how AI is going to be the death of agencies or SEO or creatives or you name it, right? Um, that is not what we saw. This is the percentage of respondents in the survey that rated each of these, not just as a challenge, but as a severe challenge for their agency. 61% said
Mhm.
maintaining a robust pipeline of right fit prospects was a severe challenge. Down there towards the bottom, 21%, the impact of AI on our relevance. So I worry sometimes, Brian, that we get kind of shiny object syndrome, both good and bad, and get really obsessing about something that is less fundamental, perhaps, than the big issue we're having, which is this pipeline problem.
No, and this slide here for me creates the most questions because
Mm,
when I look at this too, I do agree like we maybe overemphasize things with the shiny object syndrome, but also when I think of like signal versus noise, there is the you could interpret this in saying, AI is the reason our pipelines are not filling up at the moment.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
this takes a lot of interpretation here, but
Yeah.
we do know the pipeline is the urgency. This is the thing that people are looking at going, I don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to fix this? So that is what is in front of us today.
Yeah, I mean, without a robust pipeline, we've experienced this as an agency ourselves. Without a pipeline of people who know about you, are following you, or interested in you, that you're engaged with, or whatever, disaster can happen overnight. You can lose 5 projects because something weird happens in the economy and there's nobody else waiting. How long are you going to be able to pay your staff? We've seen lots of agencies really, really struggle with that kind of thing. So I just think that it's interesting. There are a lot of challenges on this list. Um, for me personally, a lot of the things that I see, like prioritizing marketing efforts and getting clients to pay us what we're worth and competing effectively and talent shortages, are linked to reputation and
Mhm.
marketing and thought leadership. We've seen that in our agency. But there's a lot of things that clients are worrying about, and pipeline across the board is the big one. Look at the percentage that said finding new clients is harder than ever. 43%, that's almost 3 times what we saw when we did this study 2 years ago. And that's really tough. And I still hear, I talked to a client this week that said, man, our timelines for closing are really a lot longer. That's tough. Yeah. So on my soapbox a little bit, I do a lot of research around what's working and what isn't working for agencies and for agency clients. And I also do research in a whole lot of other categories. And one of the things that really strikes me is how closely trust is linked to this pipeline question and how trust has really collapsed. And I think even more so in the age of AI, when it's hard to know if you're seeing even a real person on the video or hearing a real person or talking to a real person. It
Mhm.
can be really hard. But we also know that in B2B, buyers are typically 70% through their decision process before they are starting to engage with a provider. And that means we've got to be building trust earlier with those folks who could eventually hire us. They have to trust us, or we just don't even make it to the, hey, I'm reaching out on your website phase. And from my perspective, that's a function of consistently helpful content, thought leadership, demonstrating expertise. You can't be an expert at everything. So pick what it is, pick a niche, pick an audience, pick an industry, and then being cited by other trusted resources. I think a lot of us stop by saying, hey, I've been doing this for 40 years, I'm an expert. And don't take that extra effort to get out there in the community and meet other folks who can say, hey, these people really know what they're doing. And we see that makes a big difference with clients in their interest in hiring an agency, is whether they have a reputation like that.
And in building that niche, we talked about how thought leaders particularly hold that crown.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the points I made about them was that they probably offer, they don't probably, but statistically they're showing that they offer fewer services than other attitudinal segments. The thing to note here, what we did see from 23 to 25 is across the board, there was a wholesale reduction in the number of services offered by clients. And
Yeah,
in addition, we also did see a wholesale reduction across the board in headcount in all agencies.
yeah. I think focus is helpful. So, folks, we have to be building resilient prospect pipelines. And for me, that's consistently marketing the agency around niche and expertise, including a thought leadership initiative to build visibility and trust with prospects who haven't even maybe contacted you yet. You don't even know they're out there. And then intentional engagement efforts with other trusted experts for their niche. To me, those are the three things. We've seen a huge turnaround in our pipeline by implementing those things, and I've seen it work. So I don't know. What do you think about those, Brian?
No, it's critical survival for all the reasons we've talked about.
Mhm.
Um, just not being transactional, building a brand, doing what we do for clients. I mean, but I giggle at that only because my entire life in the agency space, this has been a problem.
Yeah,
Actual marketers marketing
yeah,
themselves. So, but it is because we're busy. There's so much urgency.
yeah.
I want to do take that back to change management though. Change management also has to do with the urgency in front of you. So I'm saying it's not getting any easier. So finding ways to be intentional about dealing with what's important within your agency and is how you build a niche, how you build consistent marketing. And once again, as we're seeing this um, frenzy about pipeline and qualified pipeline for a large segment of the group, once again, taking that time is critical.
Yeah, for
Hard.
sure.
It's hard.
It's hard. It's hard. Okay, now some good news. So, insight number 5 in here is actually not from the agency core. It is from this year's AMI Agency Edge study um, about AI. And we have it in here because I think it provides a lovely counterpoint to us feeling frustrated that there's nothing we can do about a lot of stuff that's out there happening in the world to us. So, the 2025 Agency Edge research with agency clients surprised me because one of the things it said was that very few clients actually look at AI as being able to replace their agencies. In fact, the majority of them want the opposite. They want their agencies to be their experts, to be their guides.
Not only that, I think you saw that they're not asking for reductions in pricing.
No. Um, no, pricing, in fact, when we ask them what they want from AI, and the Agency Edge study is available as well on the AMI site, um, they 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 want better strategy. They want better ideas. They want more ideas. They want things to be more effective. They really think that agencies plus AI can have a huge impact on their own marketing, and they want agencies that have a reputation for knowing how to use AI in marketing. And we see that as a valuable differentiator from clients in terms of, oh, you are a recognized expert in AI for marketing. That's a big thing. And so one of the outcomes of this study was for Brian and I, and this is one we presented at the Build a Better Agency conference, and the agencies in the room just sort of flipped out because I think a lot of them were thinking about how do we talk to clients about AI? Maybe they'll want to fire us if they think we're using AI or they think we're cheating or whatever. In fact, what we see from this study is that the opposite is true. We need to be transparent about how we're using AI. We need to build trust with our clients in our agencies around our use of AI, and we need to guide clients by example, but also by specific approaches that we can do to help them get up to speed on AI. So I think that's there's not very many agencies doing this now in the
Mhm.
eyes of clients. So it's a real sort of blue ocean
Uh,
opportunity.
The way I articulate it too is, the baseline is risen. The age of
Hmm.
information is gone because it's everybody has equalized. We all have access to it. But it is how we use that information now, and that is a very human thing. And that's that, once again, that's the authority and expertise and reputation that allows you to be brought to the table.
Yeah, and even though most of our clients are using AI in some capacity based on the Agency Edge research, they still have a lot of concerns about it and a lot of questions about it. So agencies really have a laundry list, if you look at that study, of things that you can help your clients understand, learn, that you can teach them, expertise you can build up in your agency. And I think your agency relationships and your pipeline will be better for it. So we're talking about communicating transparently with clients. At Audience Audit, we've introduced an AI disclosure that's going on every deliverable to a client that says, did we use AI? How, when, why, what for, what tool did we use? Just to be transparent with them. Again, reputation as an AI marketing expert is a differentiator. So don't just say you're an AI agency. Market yourself to other people that serve your clients and your prospects as an AI expert.
Even
Develop a lot of resources for them learning. Go ahead, Brian.
no, I was gonna say, when the Agency Edge, it even talked about, even at this point, even being the one telling people, like you were saying, I am using AI, still had a significant relevance in how people chose clients.
Yes.
So it's like there is still an immense amount of first mover opportunity in here. We are still very at the beginning of what's going on, and everybody is failing to figure out how to do this well.
Yeah, and it takes a little time to get other people in the industry to know you and to trust you and to start to call you out as an expert in something. So the folks who start doing this sooner have an advantage of the folks who are just now maybe thinking about talking about AI in their own activities. Um, we saw, and Drew and I presented a whole laundry list of stuff that agencies can do free and paid for clients to help them learn and navigate responsible use of AI. So I think there's tons of revenue generating opportunities. There's tons of trust building opportunities if you're ready to really dive in.
And
Um,
one thing I'd like to say too is, like, as you hear this presentation and we talk about niching down an authority and finding this, like, to some degree, it sounds like a lot of the same. It's because this has been said for so many years. But what really to emphasize here is it is accelerating. It hasn't changed, but is not only, it is becoming more critical than before because that authority is becoming much more required, whereas maybe you could have got by in the past. I think that the stakes are a lot higher now.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what kind of your agency is. I mean, like, unlike some of the technologies that have come up that maybe only affect social media agencies, or if you're doing SEO or you're doing pay-per-click advertising, this is an opportunity that can affect every single type of agency, no matter what you're doing, is how are you incorporating AI into your work? Because one of the things we saw from clients is they worry that their competitors are going to eat their lunch because their agencies may know more about how to use AI effectively in marketing than their own agency does.
Mhm.
So they really want to embrace that. Building AI case studies too, guys. If you have stuff that you've done that incorporates AI and you can show some great case studies specifically about your use of AI, definitely spend some time doing that.
And the thing I hear is, as we, in talking about AI, there progressively had been a lot of conversation about, well, AI does this, but it doesn't do this. So we're safe. We
Mm,
should move over into this corner. What I like to say is that there is no safe space. This is
mm-hmm.
much how you are leveraging it now.
Yeah.
So there's no hiding from it.
Yeah, and what was clear from what clients want from their agencies with AI is that we need to stop talking about faster, cheaper exclusively. We need to start talking about better, smarter, and how it is making us smarter as agencies on behalf of our clients. So that messaging is important. So on this study, Brian, there's more at agencycore.org. You can sign up to participate. We're going to do this study at least every year along with some other stuff, but you can also see the resources. You can download the full report from agencycore.org. And then if you go to the AMI website and you want to look into the AI research with Agency Edge, Drew and I have a podcast episode on that as well. So lots of stuff to talk about on both those fronts.
Yep. And as we said, we're open source. We're open with all the information we're doing. So all the visualizations and ability to dig into the data to understand it a little bit better will be there and open to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Shadley, have we got any questions? Does anybody, you can unmute yourself or you could put something in the chat if you have, we have a few more minutes if you have questions about any of this.
I guess I'll ask if what the of your study, I think you may have said a little bit about this, but what was the biggest surprise for you? I think you had said at one point that it was that AI was not the big threat that everyone thought or the big fear.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think just touching on that again, obviously, if anyone has questions, you can either unmute
That
yourself or you can drop a note in, but I just wanted to touch on what was the most surprising for you. That's my question.
for that was one of them for me, but I think honestly the biggest surprise was how stable this landscape is. Because it means that these are not transitory problems. It means that we as an industry really have to dig in and help people figure out the staffing struggler problems and the change seeker problems and the cobbler kids problems because they are pervasive. They're not going away. And every year agencies go out of business because of these problems. So if we're going to survive as an industry and be healthy, we all need to help each other out on this stuff. We just can't drop it and go to the next new thing. These are pervasive, deep, foundational problems.
Yeah. I do see a question from Will. For agencies finding success reducing service offerings, A, what services are they having success with? And B, is there a tension between reducing services and being able to provide strategy across a client's needs?
Hmm. Good
Yeah.
questions. Go ahead, Brian.
So, may I share my screen? I just have a breakout of one of the visualizations up. So statistically, just looking at the breakout that we saw,
Mm-hmm.
this is the service offerings at just a level, and we see them broken out by the different types of segments. But when we talk about like the types of service offerings, we are seeing a dramatic increase in providing strategy. The
Mm-hmm.
key in that is there's breakdowns of whether we're providing just providing strategy or strategy and executables. And we found those just providing strategy or those just providing executables to be just in the single digit range, like maybe between 4 to 8%. But
Yep.
you see here, like even from we are seeing marketing strategy development as like the key, and we're seeing content strategy as being key. So that's very much positioning, relevancy to
Mm-hmm.
clients, as what is
The
being.
other thing we have is that question about we asked agency leaders the extent to which they include strategy in every engagement. And overwhelmingly, the agencies that are doing better, strategy is just a part of what they do. No matter what other support they're providing, there's always a strategic component in it. And I think that that is what's really making it's helps build client loyalty. They can go to any shop down the street for a specific tactic, but strategy is harder to find.
Mhm,
And I think it works well too in-house, for just your employees. Most of them are going to want to be involved in strategic work too, not just tactical sort of making widget kind of work. So I think my answer to that question, what services are they having success with, is whatever services that you're an expert at and your audience needs, but with a strategy layer on top of it.
mhm.
We have a clarifying question from Roger. If would you put podcast production under content development? I think just
Oh,
find where
that's
that.
an interesting question. Um, Yeah, I mean, I guess it sort of depends on how you organize things. I mean, I've seen podcast production for clients be under thought leadership initiatives. We're a thought leadership strategy agency. That's not something we do, but it is devoted to sort of the thought leadership end of things. But it certainly could go into content development for sure.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
definitely, one of my perceptions on that is with the decline in trust and there being a lot more like AI video, AI voice replication, a lot of things there, more authentic forms of content and presentations, even like podcast or webinars, I feel is having a much more of an authentic presence and is bringing more credibility. Because
Hmm.
I feel, and you have seen even from your studies that you follow, Susan, that trust in general is just continuing to tick down.
Worldwide. And now 57%, 59% of People believe that business leaders are intentionally lying to them or misleading them to get their money. So we have a long way to go. Baseline is no longer lack of trust, it's distrust. We have a lot of work to do.
Do we have any
Anybody
other
else?
questions?
Feel free to reach out to either Brian or I if you have questions about Agency Core and the research that we're doing. We would love to have you be part of the community, participate in the surveys. Again, we're not selling anything. It's a nonprofit. So we just want to keep the helpful information coming, and certainly to Drew or I about the Agency Edge research, which is the AI research that we talked about that you can find on the AMI site.
And
Is
to
it
know, as we are
agencycore.org?
promoting,
Sorry,
yes, correct,
agencycore.org.
that is correct.
Agencycore.org.
I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
drop it in the. I'll drop it in the chat.
Perfect.
And
And then agencymanagementinstitute.com for the AMI site.
And the way Agency Core is structured is, as we provided the open source research, we are bringing agency leaders from across the board in to provide analysis. So Agency Core itself will not have an opinion, but as we bring partners in who are helping to provide analysis, and we're hoping to see some differences. We're hoping to see a lot of active discussion. As we went through the slide and talked about, pipeline versus AI, once again, signal to noise, I think there's a lot of questions that the survey has really opened up for us.
For sure. And if you are killing it at one of these challenges that one of these groups is dealing with and have a solution that you are willing to share, get in touch with us, because we would love to share that through Agency Core, share what you've done and what you've accomplished and how it's worked for you. Help your fellow agency leaders out. Not easy. If it was, everybody would do it, right, Shadley?
Yeah. Right. Okay, if you don't have any final questions, I think we're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Susan and Brian, for joining us today.
Thank you, Shadley.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with another presentation, and everyone have a great rest of day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.